Sorry for that technical hitch. And of course, speaking about Champagne Challenge, 4x4 Challenge, it's happening this weekend at Kipeto in Kajiado County, and our very own Robert Osoro is pitching camp there. He's going to bringing us live proceedings as far as the two-day event is concerned. Remember, Rhino Charge expert John Kanyari is also taking part. He confirmed participation, and it's going to be a thrilling event you don't want to miss. Of course, stay tuned to Y254. This is the touchline. My name is Maxwell Wasika. Very, very fantastic Saturday afternoon, and welcome to the program. 22162 is always our drill, our SMS line starting with the word touch. Talk to us. What are your expectations ahead of Berlin Marathon tomorrow? A hotly contested battle between Wilson Kipsang and Eliud Kipchoge. And of course, straight, we're going to speak about the sports development in the country, and one person who's been actively involved as far as women empowerment in sports has just joined us on the set. Quinter Odongo, good to have you, and good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. Pleasure is all mine.
Pleasure to have you as well. You just straight from RFU grounds where Christy Sevens is happening, the last leg of the National Sevens circuit.
Yes.
How is the going? What have you witnessed so far?
I mean, it's a tough one because the decisions to be made today, the teams fighting for not getting to the quarters, not getting to the semis. And of course, homeboys are looking, the DJs are looking to take this home because they've had a very good season and they cannot break the pot today. So everything is hot this weekend, and Christie's is good. I'm all urging people to get out and get to the field because they're a bit empty. We're just wondering what's the change, because Christie's used to be the in thing and used to be full.
And talking about the less crowded venues of our sporting activities in the country, it also forms a pivotal aspect as far as sports development is concerned.
Yes.
Do you think the fans outside there have failed to, enhance the growth and development of the sport in terms of attendance, games? We saw last weekend on Saturday at Kasarani Stadium during AFCON qualifier between Kenya and Ghana. Well, attendance contrary to expectations,
yeah.
But overall, what do you make of members of the public in terms of showing up?
Matters to do with fan engagement is a very critical and sensitive topic to have a conversations around, because it's a two-way conversation. It's also on the sports institutions and the organization organizing these events and cups and tournaments and matches. And also there's a role for them to play in terms of marketing their events and bringing on board partners who can actually activate around it to give fans a reason of coming to the stadium. But as well as fans who support the game and support our nation, we have a role to play. Because most of the support is on the keyboard, but not on the ground. So every bit and every aspect and everyone who's on the ecosystem of sports has a role to play. That is a journey. It's not a one-day thing. But I must say the Ghana attendance was out of this year's attendance for Harambee Stars, especially in regards to the past performance of Harambee Stars. And
probably as sports stakeholders, what should be done, the mechanisms and structures that should be laid in place to ensure that, huge crowds are attracted to the venues of sporting activities in the country? Because also, having spoken to some fans outside there, they are so pessimistic, and they say, it's not good to associate themselves with such a team because of poor performance. Do you think it's also contributed immensely in the dwindling standards of fan turnout?
I mean, fan turnout goes a long way. First, from the issues around ethic and governance in sports. You cannot be waking up in the morning and everything you hear about is negativity around their platform, that is sports. I mean, fans will support something that is positive, something that is progressive, something that is well organized, something that is well marketed. But we've seen this happening. We've seen someone come in this space and change it. So it's something that can be done. You can see the hype and the marketing that, let's take scenario of what SportPesa do. SportPesa is an example of their events are always full.
True.
So what are they doing that we're not doing?
Proper marketing.
Proper marketing. And it's just not about marketing, it's also planning for these events. You can realize that we knew about the Ghana game, but how many people knew about the Malawi friendly? You get all factors brought on the table and discussed. We knew about Nakuru. We knew about Sepetuka. We knew about Machakos. Can you compare?
And we also knew about the fight between Zarika and
fight. Can you compare the marketing that went through for the Zarika fight and the Christies? Do you get the gap?
Yes, I
and
do.
it's a role that everyone within the ecosystem, if you're going to organize a sporting event, there's quite a lot of factors to be considered.
A lot of factors to be considered. Of course, I read your article where you said Kenyan sports is dead and just waiting for the burial. Kindly substantiate. What did you mean saying so?
We need to look at Kenyan sports development in a holistic view. And my take is a holistic view from the point of how sustainable is our sports investment right now and our sports programs right now. Because what we look at when I discuss about sports development, my views and opinion directly fall on the guys who have the mandate to develop sports right here, and that falls on the Ministry of Sport, because that's the key guy who needs to set pace on what is happening in this space. What role and how far have they taken us in terms of impacting and developing sports? Because what we really get to realize right now is the only time we feel and hear about our Ministry of Sport is when there is a big international event happening. But that is not the definition of sports development. Sports development comes from grassroots. Sports development cuts across primary, it cuts across secondary, it cuts across what is happening in the college space, what is happening in the Premier League. If we're going to sit and depend on having an athletics world championship and then we pump all our budget into one event and mention that is sports development, we have a long way to go, or unless we're waiting to be buried.
So from where you sit, you think the government, through Ministry of Sports, has played a dismal role, or rather not actively involved in itself in growth and development of the sport? And what do you make of our grassroots structures? Have these federations laid in place proper mechanisms, especially at the local level, where I understand plenty of untapped potential? What do you assess of the situation?
I think I'm going to be very categorical in issues to do with the strategies, the policies, and the plans the Ministry of Sport has for the country. And it's upon them to set foundation to inform and enable federations to actually execute their plans. As much as we're putting the weight on the Ministry of Sport as well, federations need to style up, and because the ministry should actually power up their planned strategies of what they want to be done. But the federation is struggling out here. The federation on the boxing side, the federation on tennis, the federations on, especially the individual sports. Because when you tend to hear about football, what comes in your head? Because football is the mass market sport, so definitely it's upon the ministry to put in some money in it and put in support in it. But do we get to know what strategy or what plan our ministry has for sports? Do you have that strategy document?
No.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
So we have a long way to go.
We have a long way to go. Of course, Quinter Odongo, sports development advocate, joining us on the touchline to speak about sports development in the country. And you can also join the conversation via social media handles as well at Wasike Maxwell, to Y254 channel, hashtag touchline Y254. And remember the drill, 22162 is our SMS line starting with the word touch. Do you read from the same script with her as far as her submissions with regards to sports in the country is concerned? Do you think the government has played its role, maximum role, in ensuring that sports gets to another level? Another thing, another aspect as far as sports development we're going to speak about is women empowerment. I've seen a few women in the country who are so passionate, enthusiastic. Their love for sports, of course, is unrivaled. You yourself, alongside people like Cynthia Mumbo, who is now heavily invested in basketball, alongside people like Ami Wandai. What do you make of, women empowerment and those women who are on the front line as far as sports governance is concerned, playing their role to ensure that we get to another level sports-wise?
Women have been in sports. Women have been in positions in matters to do with sports governance. What we're saying right now is the seats on the table that have been set aside for women are not enough to bring the change, especially if we're discussing the investment and the change we want to see within women's sports. It's only women who can say this is what we're thinking of and this is what can work for women and this is what we ideally foresee in the future for women. I'm not saying that this space should be cut only for women, but if we put in place ways in which there is coexistence between women and men in an equal space, then the difference and the change will be quite a lot. But here's the thing. When we say there are quite a lot of women coming out now to say we want more development in women in sports, there are quite a number of obstacles in place for these women. First, in terms of education opportunities.
Yeah.
I'll take a scenario and give you an example and say a quick analysis on sports scholarships in this country. 70% is male, 30% is female. Quick analysis. And a quick analysis is when you see the kind of investment, female clubs are given and the kind of investment male clubs are given. It's across the world, but the thing is, what are we doing to bring up this sector to a level where it is manageable for the women players who've decided this is my career and they've made a decision that we're going to exist in this space and make it our employment. Because at the end of the day, bills have to be paid. At the end of the day, careers have to be developed. At the end of the day, whether you're a man or a woman, you have to play on a field. To the fact that the male Premier Leagues have priority on fields, and you've seen, Wasike, you've been on the ground and you've seen the kind of fields our female athletes are using for their leagues. It's devastating. It's time we have conversation and say, we have a sport, and we have two genders here, and we have to equally look and see how are we investing to bring this to a level where it is sustainable and it's of value to the women in that space.
When you're talking about resource allocation, 70% for men, 30% to women.
Yes.
Is it, of course, there has been concerns over the allocation as far as both genders are concerned. Some think that, women are waiting to be spoon-fed, silver platter, and they should fight for these opportunities. From where you sit, do you think you've played an immense role towards, looking for the opportunities for available chances rather than, complaining and grumbling, waiting to be spoon-fed probably?
Yes, and I think with my experience is, as I mentioned to you and as you've seen, my tenure at Kariobangi Sharks, I was the only female who've managed a CEO, on a CEO position, who've managed a Kenya Premier League club. And you could see the results that got there. Our first year finished third, proper digital strategy, proper structures in the club. So we're not sitting back. We're just saying we need these opportunities available for women. These opportunities in a certain way, it kills me and it pains me when a national female team travels out and the technical bench is 70% managed by men. It kills me. But listen, there's also the bit of, okay, fine, these male technicians have gone the extra notch of pursuing these skills and studying and specializing in this sector. We're just saying we need to create opportunities to expose these women to special skill training that can allow them to sit. Because we also don't want to get into a point where, because your gender puts you in a position, it's supposed to be your skill set puts you in that seat on the table, so that you can actually have structural conversation on development towards women in sports. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to sit on a board because you're a lady, but don't bring the value and the change and the impact you deserve and need, there's no reason of saying, oh, we're championing for women in sports development and all that.
Another thing is whether the federations, we've seen during international championships like Olympics, Commonwealth, now existence of briefcase federations which come into limelight during those international events, but we don't get to know them prior such events. They are never in the knowledge of public domain. But overall, at federation level, do you think they have played a proper role to ensure that, their respective associations of sports, be it badminton, be it hockey, basketball, boxing, rugby, football, sport can be enhanced and welfare of the players? Players form an integral part of these sports, and
Yes.
all that is pursued have to be in their best interest.
Yes.
Do you think federation honchos, the presidents, the chairman, and the officials, stakeholders of the same, have done their best?
I'm not going to generalize all of them, but there are federations that are really putting, structures in place and saying, for our time in development, these are the policies we're going to execute and ensure that we take our federation to the next level. But this is the thing. We need quite a lot in terms of capacity building. within federations, because it is not clear what the mandate of. It is clear, you understand what the federations need to do, but it's not clear when it comes to execution. One of the key roles that our federation have picked up and say this is what we're dying with is hosting events and tournaments and international friendlies.
That's not enough.
One of the top mandates of federations is grassroots development.
True.
Of that sport in that country or in that region. Where I'm sitting from right now, we're not getting that. We're not getting that. And the biggest issue that we keep saying, it's out of financing that we're not getting that. No. We're at a point where our federations need to clean up their houses and put structures in place and say, this is a structure that we're working with. These are the policies in place, and this is our plan to allow attraction of partners to plug in. And when partners are plugging in, then there's a reason of why I'm plugging in. Either I'm plugging in for return on investment, or I'm plugging in to achieve an objective. Okay? Our federation is so tight to a point of we sit and wait. 6 months down the line, our team is meant to travel. Then we're now looking for financing. It never works like that. You need to set pace. You need to set strategy in place and say, as a federation, this is what we're championing for, and this is our brand, and this is what will attract you to work with us. Have we said that? No, we haven't. A few of the federations are doing quite well in that front, but there's quite some work to be done.
And talking about the leadership of various federations, do you think former players are supposed to take charge and, rise to the mantle in terms of, administrative dockets? We've seen Humphrey Kayange, former national sevens team now, actively getting himself actively involved in matters, being team manager for African Championships. He's currently
doing quite a good of
a committee member at the National Olympic Committee of Kenya and doing exceptionally well. Is it high time we see the likes of, Muso Tieno, Simon Sepe Mulama now rising to the leadership positions in various federations where they featured prominently?
It is, I think the time is now, but I'll give you a scenario and I'll let you think about that. Johan Craft Institute is specifically for ex-athletes who want to venture now from playing to get into a point of, I'm getting into sports governance or sports business. We will be giving and expecting so much from our players and say, because you've hung your boots, you're fit to get into governance. Because you played in the track does not mean you know sports governance. Or because you played in the field does not mean you understand sports marketing. You're passionate about the sport, but you need to enhance your skill to understand about sports governance and sports marketing or sports business. You understand where I'm coming from? Because at the end of the day, I know how to run. But because of the process I've gone through, I might have achieved or acquired a couple of skills to say, if this thing was done this way, it will have been the other way. But also take a keen interest and understand that our federations are not appointed. It is a political space that you have to campaign and then be voted in. Do you think athletes will have...
So it's about financial muscles and not really the ideological...
But the real ideology should have been, what plan do you have for this federation? What expertise do you have in this field? And what are you looking to deliver for this field in the future? But unfortunately, what is on the ground is financial muscle. Can you campaign? Then you earn the position. And then when it gets to us is, how long really are we going to struggle to get you from that position after 7 or 5 years out of the... So it's quite a journey. We have a long way to expect players to pick in this position, but it's happening right now. You've seen Wanyama coming out to championing for some issues. Him engaging with Chapadimba is championing something through it. You've seen...
He's the ambassador.
He is the ambassador, and it's quite good. And that is player endorsement. When you finish playing, there's aspect of sporting that you can take your career to the next level. Either you take the route of player endorsement, either you go direct into the business of sports, or either you become a sports leader. And we've seen Hayangi doing so well with the step to, about the refugees, step to safe.
Yes.
Yes, it's step to safe. And he's part of the Olympics committee. He's doing quite well. But how many of these players retire happily?
That's a challenge to sportsmen outside there who've played at various level, and probably what she's trying to say, what she's insinuating is that you need to do something on the side, even half papers probably, when you get done with your sporting profession, you can be a pundit, right?
Yes.
Like we've seen many of them nowadays, Boniface Hambani, Simon Mulama,
Yes.
they're doing punditry on TV, but having also prominently featured for the national team, Harambee Stars, and even local clubs. That's the way to go.
And also you can see the work of Boniface Hambani and the likes of Ghost Mule,
Yes.
having been there, and Musa Otieno is doing quite a lot in terms of empowering players and advising players on the right route.
As we speak right now, he's
in Germany. He's in Germany for
development.
three months.
Wow.
Quite a lot of experience that he's coming back home with. Such opportunities are what we're saying, that as a player, yes, you hang your boots, but there is that step that you need to take to start doing something. We've seen, we saw Masood go back home. When he came back, he went back home and did
He's
something.
landed a club in Oman.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Anyway. That's quite good, but
Plenty of breakthrough.
Plenty of breakthrough, and also we understand the extra notch that you go. When he came back from Cape Town, he went to Isiolo and did quite something for the players down there. That is a journey that he's taking. He's still playing, but by the time you give or take, give him 7 or 5 years, by the time he's done with that, he will understand what it means to develop a property. He will understand what it means. Why am I doing this cup for the kids in Isiolo? And we've seen the captain for the volleyball ladies team going back and doing initiatives to do with jiggers, cleaning up her village. And these are things that it's a different angle. What I say every day is sports is an enabler to achieve community challenges and solutions. Whichever way you look at it, sports is an enabler. And being a sports athlete, you are a champion. You become the change agent that we are looking for in the society. So quite a lot is given to you as fans support you, but when you retire, quite a lot is demanded.
So what else do I need to become a successful sports administrator besides, of course, this journalism profession, passion for sports, and probably if there is someone who played a footballer, an athlete, a rugby player before, and he's looking forward venturing into sports management matters, initiation of sports programs. Am I supposed to pursue further education to be empowered on how I go about it? Or what do I need besides passion, besides profession, besides having played before?
It depends on what level do you want to play in terms of sports administration and sports governance. When you're doing your community work on the ground,
yes,
you need the ground knowledge. You have to be on the ground. Absolutely. And know how are things done in Kajiado. How are the people of Kajiado? What are their needs?
Yes,
and how
priorities.
How can we use the sport to solve their need? That is street knowledge from the grassroots. You have to be on the ground. If you want to play from the angle of demanding change and bringing impact in the space, then again you have to have a knowledge of what does it mean to use sports for high-level community change. This calls for you to have knowledge in terms of governance. It calls for you to have knowledge in terms of strategy. It calls for you to have knowledge in terms of accountability. Because the lack of accountability is what brings the issues on money, the issues of ethics, the issues of our projects are collapsing and our projects, are falling down. So at the end of the day, it depends on what level you want to join sports governance. But you have to have the knowledge of the sport, you have to have the passion for the sports, and you have to have the reason, why am I getting into this? What do you want to leave? What legacy are you working to leave? Because most of these people get into this for political mileage. Most of people getting into this because I love the sport, but have no vision for the sport. So the one thing that you must have is, what vision do I have for the sport? Then what must I do to achieve my vision for this game?
Wow, excellent conversation on the touchline on Y254. A very fantastic Saturday afternoon if you're just joining in right now. Of course, a lot is happening as far as matter sports are concerned. The Berlin Marathon happening tomorrow, a totally contested battle between Kenya and Eliud Kipchoge and Wilson Kipsang. Christy Sevens, the last leg of the National 7 circuit, is also happening at the RFUA grounds. Homeboy is looking forward to be crowned overall champions, while Mambo, who are currently occupying second on the standings with 92 points, just working and praying on luck that probably Homeboys doesn't get to the semis and they win the leg so that they win the championship overall. Remember, pulsating clash coming up in a few minutes from now, of course, at 2:30. Liverpool against Spurs. Wanyama scored a thriller when they played last. What are you looking forward to now that you mentioned Wanyama before?
I'm hoping that he's going to make back into the 18 because his is
A little
quite,
bit of fitness levels though.
and the injuries have been quite something for him. And I believe him not coming down for the Ghana match was just to take time and recover back into the system and get back to the season. I say one thing, that it's quite something to be a player and you're dealing with a nagging injury. Wanyama is dealing with a nagging injury, but Wanyama being the Lion King, we expect
The Lion of Muduro.
the Lion of Muduro, we expect him to come back and actually deliver the technical, because the mid is not the mid if Wanyama is not there.
Sure.
The mid is not the mid if Wanyama is not there. They're managing. They will manage. We've seen them handling it, but for them to have him held back, they need him. That can tell you of the plan, that the strategy they have. We need you to recover.
If Wanyama featured for Harambee Stars against Black Stars, 4-time African champions, there would have been a difference in the midfield.
To be honest, there will be a difference because we had so much issues. Our midfield were all over the place. You saw what Ghana did for us. The Black Stars took us all the way to our mid was any pass that was going cross to the mid. And that was the struggle Olunga was getting, because any pass that was coming from the back could not penetrate the middle. And the only advantage we took is playing on the wing. That's the difference Wanyama brings in the game, because when Wanyama is in the mid, there's a cooperation. And if you ask me, earlier in the session, you were talking about Patila Omoto, and from my view, Patila is years back, but Patila is going to be the next Wanyama. Quite a lot. He started too late, but he's going to be the next Wanyama because he brings some concentration and subtleness in our mid. You saw how we struggled with the Black Stars.
And now that you are a former CEO of Kariobangi Sharks, a team that is closely associated with the president of the federation. Of course, from where I sit, probably players that got selected from Sharks are justified to be in the national team, but it's something that has drawn huge attention, a lot of criticism from football fans. What do you think?
I understand the attention that is coming with Kariobangi Sharks and the whole issues around it. But one thing I keep saying, and I kept on saying when I was in the club, Nick does not wear the boots and play. These players play. And let's take a situation about Masood and Ovela. If Masood was called to the national team, we'll have issues. But Masood was called to the national team because he was a golden boot. He delivered. Ovela was called and we all had issues. But didn't Ovela deliver for Ghana?
He did.
He did. Oyamba was called once in the national team on a call-up because he was the golden boot. So it's about...
He was actually KPL goalkeeper of the year.
Yes, let's concentrate on the technicalities. I understand there are issues that will be aligned politically, economically, but let's concentrate on the technicalities, because all these side shows are what drifts our concentration on, are we developing the sport, or are we concentrating on trust you me, if we get that crowd that we always have online criticizing the 18 men Minye called, if we get it to the stadium, we'll be developing the sport. We'll be playing a role as a fan.
Quinter, we have to wind up, but you are parting short. Do you think our sports is getting progressive or otherwise?
According to the SDG UN Agenda 2030, sport was discussed and selected to be an enabler for community change. Sport is developing in Kenya. We're going to take it a notch higher, where we're saying it is supposed to be a safe space, not a space where people come to mint. It is progressively getting there, and that's the reason why we're getting deals of hosting the rally, championship here, and that's the reason why it is coming back to Kenya.
2020.
Athletics is coming back to Kenya, but my
2020 as well, a lot of activities.
A lot of activities. That means there is future for Kenyan sport, but my urge is, can we be sober on the decisions and the investments made within the sporting industry, and especially concentrating on the player welfare. If we don't have the athletes, we don't have a sport. We need to start thinking of how are we taking care of our players, for them to be in a level where they deliver quality, for fans to come to the stadium where we commercialize on the presence of sporting, and for it to attract more funding that will allow us to pump it back into grassroots development.
Quinter, always a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks for coming through. Looking forward to hosting you once again in our subsequent programs for another comprehensive update with regard to sports development. You put on many hats, by the way, former CEO Sharks, a sports development advocate, sports programs officer, and you now pursuing some further learning as far as sports management is concerned?
Yes, I've been fortunate enough to be in the sporting angle since my high school. After I left high school, I was lucky to get a scholarship at Strathmore University that brought me into this, exposed me to these opportunities that I'm getting right now. After my success at Kariobangi Sharks and the management that I delivered, I was lucky to get a scholarship to study sports marketing and sponsorship at Johan Kraft. As well, after my first semester, I'm smart. My intelligence allowed me to get another one. So I'm doing 2 masters concurrently, masters in sports marketing, sponsorship and management, and masters in football business.
Wow.
In Barcelona.
That is too colorful. Hey, I'm looking down upon myself. Come on. Anyway, my name is Maxwell Wasike. That is it. And this is the touchline on Y254. Don't go away. Stay tuned. The fan favorite segment, the Fan Zone, coming up, where we give a focus on international football. Analysts already in studio to take us through the same. Remember, Liverpool against Spurs kicking off in a few minutes from now, and also there is some talk of introduction of another European competition. And Jose Mourinho during press conferences, wow, what did he say about Marcus Rashford? That man, the Portuguese international. Just leave him alone. Coming up next, Fan Zone. Don't go away. Stay tuned. Challengers picked up in the country and witnessed. Four-by-Four Challenge is an off-road event characterized by fun and entertainment for spectators and participants as well. It's a kind of sport that involves driving or riding a vehicle on unsurfaced roads or tracks made of materials such as sand, gravel, riverbed,